going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me for yet another painting demonstration. You'll notice I got a smaller piece of paper on the board here. I'm going to try doing something a little different, and this is going to involve, let's say not everything kind of goes the way you want it to. So that's, I think, the number one thing in people coming into watercolor. When you first approach, you don't know how things are going to go, and you sort of timidly go at what you're going to be painting. And with that, you make mistakes. You don't like how certain things come out, whatever. So let's see what we can do here, and let's try to actually have things go wrong. So the first thing, of course, I do is wet the paper down. And I'm using a smaller hake here. You can do this if you're coming into this. I recommend just right off with the larger hake. But use the smaller hake if you're more comfortable with it, if it's easier. It gives you an intermediary type thing. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say, well, I'm going to go with, let's start off with the raw sienna, which I like to do. Now, I got some red in here. Didn't really want that. Put a little more water in your brush and just dilute it a little bit, okay? Then you can go back and you can come back and you can hit up your raw sienna again. And we'll come in and we'll grab some blue. And we'll say, I wanted that to be a little bit darker. That wasn't right. So I'm going to add a little Payne's gray in there. And just, you can kind of go over the top. There's a little hair on there. Usually I don't chase those down. I just leave them when they dry. You can pick them off. And that's what happens when you chase the little hairs down. Pull on the hairs of the brush a little bit before you actually start, and you'll get a lot of those out of there. Don't worry about when you're painting how things look, because when it dries, it's actually going to look different. So let's go ahead, and that's where we're going to go with that. And let's go ahead and we get like a green color in there. And we'll just put some background bushes, some little shrubs in there like that. Okay, a little bit on the bottom here, sort of running down. You could just drag your brush across that. And then as you're doing this, all of a sudden you get some water in your brush. Oh no, what am I going to do with that? Oh boy. Well, there's a couple things you can do. First of all, you take your little paper towel. You can actually wipe this off. And you've kind of made a mess with that there, right? Because you got some big smears on there. How in the world am I ever going to correct that? Another thing you can do is you can take your water bottle. Now, if you're using phthalo blue or some super staining thing, you're not going to be able to do that. But there is some spray bottle on the water, on there. Look at it. It's almost all virtually gone now. And so what you could do with that is you could say, well, I did have some bushes there already, so let me go ahead and we'll get some more green. And we'll just increase the amount of bushes there. Because again, this is supposed to be fun, right? And we'll take a little bit of just a darker color in there, some brown. And again, I'm doing this. This is again meant to be just super, very, very easy. And we'll just take some raw sienna here. A little bit of brown. We'll just quick strokes across the bottom. Now, I would have preferred that not been so wet. I would have liked to had a little bit better of a stroke there. Again, you can wipe things down. If you want some textures in there, you can touch it with your fingers. I mean, if it doesn't bother you, you can do that, and you can create other additional textures. Go in and get a little heavier on the brush. And you can sort of cover things up with some darker colors. It's hard to go from dark to light, correct things and sort of go over things. Eventually you get to a point to where it's mud, so you don't really want to go too many layers of paint, because it will look muddy, it will look overworked if you're shooting for that. But if you're just shooting to have some fun and you want to experiment, and you want to get in there and go, wow, look at that, he just wiped that thing off. I mean, that just shows the casual approach that you can have to this, so that you can have fun with it and not be so you know, nervous about the approach and I'm going to make a mistake, make the mistake. Make it. The mistakes, actually, sometimes you look back at it after it's done and you go, wow, hey, that actually, I like that. It turned out pretty good. Who was it, Bob Ross? It's something about mistakes are happy accidents. So that's one of the ways that you can look at it. Let's take our card here and we'll put a nice big old sort of dead tree in there. Not dead, but the bones of the tree. I don't like saying dead things. We'll put the bones of the tree in there and just tap a little color on there. A little bit over the top. And let's make this into sort of a path here. Even a little bit of white. And you know, if you go over when you wanted white there, it's pretty hard to get that back. So that's something you got to be careful with. You can lift, you can wipe. For example, if I wanted to maybe make this a little lighter because I wanted to put a figure here, you could take a paper towel, you could take the end of a brush with a little water on it, and you can brush over the top, and you can take your paper towel and you can lift out a little space there, and then you can put a figure in there. So don't be afraid to try these things. It's from these things that you will learn the things that you will do in the future with watercolor. Now, if I wanted to make this come in a little bit more on this path and sort of narrow this out, I can add a little bit more of this just to kind of narrow that path down. You can see how now all of a sudden that path became narrow. Okay? I'm just going to take a little of the darker color here and just sort of form a little more of this path here. And let's take it to a quick dry. All right, let's come back to this little, still using the smaller Hake brush just to show you what's possible, and you could work with smaller paper. But let's take and make sort of a darker green with just a little more blue in there, and we'll just dab in some grass more in the foreground here. Just a little more grass. And if you want to make a nice little tree, heck, like I don't put trees in my paintings. Quick slide up the top, and then why don't we just go to our rigger brush. We'll use the number 2. Number 2 is a little bit of a finer point. Wet that down good. I probably should have, here, let's make it sort of dry. And so I'm going across, see, now it's not going to do it for me. Well, let's say you find that to be a little weak. Now, this takes a little bit more practice, but if you follow along that branch, you can make some little, you can make it a little bit darker. That takes a little practice, though, and a steady hand, which I do not have. See, you can get crazy with your brush and just wiggle it up and down, do all kinds of things. It'll look like it was supposed to be there. It will look like that in the end. Here, let's put some little things here. And you can take a couple things you could do with this tree. You can take like your flat brush and you can take some paint back and make it look like the light's hitting. You can use your paper towel and you could slide it down. And you could say, oh, I created some highlight there. If you're not happy with any of that, you can go over with the paint again. You can take your card, you can scrape off some paint, like I like to do. And in the end, if you go, that is just terrible, you can just take your brush and just go right back up over the top again. And start the process again. And take your card. Give it another little scrape. Give it some grasses down below. And then let's go ahead and let's tap into some green. Take your brush and really just get most of the paint out of it. Take your brush. Look at this. Look how ratty that thing looks. and just tap it. Start lightly tapping so you know how much is on there. You can always add more. It's harder to take it away. Yeah. And we'll just add a little bit more blue. And finally some neutral tint or Payne's gray just to get some darker in there. And look at that. We've got a nice little setting here. You can even use a little bit of that darker stuff to create some heavier blades of grass. Nice little, turned out for all the mistakes that were made, turned out to be a nice little deal. And you can even put a little figure in. See where we made that little light down there? You say, well, you know what? Looks like a good spot for a figure. So we'll take and we'll just put, starting with the dot for the head. And being we already lifted out, if you put a figure in it you're not happy with, you can lift it out. Again, with the steady hand. This guy almost looks like he's got a helmet on. Maybe he does. Maybe he's a worker out there. A little more broad in the shoulders. And let's give him a little dog. A very little dog. Dog ain't looking too good. But what you can do is you just corrections. Just carefully work on it. He's from a distance, so you probably won't even really, if you step back and you look at it. And then we'll just put a little shadow in there, just so they don't look like they're floating in midair. See, and now they look like they're standing over there. And then more advanced wise you could get if you say, well, I want a little bit of a shadow on my tree here. Take a little bit of that wet paint and just sort of push it back a little bit. Got a little shadow right on the tree there. Same thing over here. Just a little, whatever's left on the brush. You can give it a little smear with your finger to lighten it up. But the purpose of this video, I just wanted to show how approachable that this medium is. And not to be at all afraid of it, because there's so much that you can do with it. So let's pop a few birds in. And I use a pen for this, and I might be a heretic, but my hand is shaky, and I use it, and then I mess up the bird, and so that's how I avoid mess ups. So I put a couple little birdies in there, and that's it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Leave me a message down below. Do a quick close-up of the painting just shortly. And by the way, you'll notice, see how the little glow where I lifted out around the guy kind of made him stand out a little bit? Kind of neat. All right, I'll zoom in here and you can get a closer look. Okay, here's the finished painting in a nice little, this is an 8x10 paper with a, I don't know, 11 by something mat. What does it say on the back here? 11 by 14 mat. And look at this. Ready to go, put in a bathroom, some little room in your house, and you could tell everybody you painted that, and you don't have to tell them all the little mistakes that you made as you went along, and they'll just say, wow, look at that. Okay, well that's it. Thanks again everybody, and remember to comment and subscribe and all that good stuff. Have a great day everyone.